Could you start by telling us a little about yourself and your business?
Yeah, I'm originally from Germany. I came to the United States to go to college. I studied biology. Then I was encouraged by one of my professors to go on and go to PhD in immunology from the Drexel School of Medicine. After my PhD, I did a Fogarty International Fellowship at NIH. Then I went to business school to gain my MBA at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Um, then I worked for Eli Lilly and Company, a pharmaceutical company, for 18 and a half years with increasing leadership assignments. I spent 4.5 years at IQVIA, which back then was called Quintiles, and then became a co-founder of Arrivo Bioventures, AB Collaborative Investments, and a founder of Magnetas, which is a healthcare consulting firm. That's basically my life story.
What part of your work are you most proud of?
First was my PhD work, because in order to get a PhD, you got to be able to come up with something new and advance something, and it really is a little bit like an entrepreneurship. That's probably one of the pieces that I was most proud of.
Was there like a specific moment when you realized this was your path and you wanted to pursue this?
Yeah, well, let me tell you what I see as an entrepreneur, because a lot of people think, well, somebody starts a company as an entrepreneur, and that's actually not the way I look at entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur to me is a humble, passionate problem solver. Whether you work in a company like Eli Lilly and Company, where you could be an entrepreneur, which is again, it's an entrepreneur within a company, or like on a PhD where you don't really start a company, but you have to be an entrepreneur because you have to think about, is this the best, or is there a better way to demonstrate something, to highlight something? And you can do that anywhere, and in any job that you have. And some of my biggest successes were actually at Lilly, where I was an entrepreneur at Lilly, where I turned a district around. I started an innovative pricing and business planning process, and I launched 2 products. So all those were entrepreneurial activities. What makes it different from being an entrepreneur or being an entrepreneur in a pharma company versus an entrepreneur for your own company? In a pharma company, you get money, you get funded internally. If you start a company on your own, then you look for funding externally. And that to me is the big difference. But you still the same thing where you go in with a mindset, is there a better way of doing things? Or, that to me is the key question for an entrepreneur. Does that make sense?
It does. Could you share the story of how your business idea came to life?
Yeah, it was really something that a friend of mine and we came up with. He had done that before, where he wanted to take repurposed molecules. So something that failed in something, but maybe has potential in another therapeutic area or another indication. And so that's how we got started. It seemed like a pretty good idea at the time, but I think the environment has changed a little bit, in that repurposing may not be the best way to go these days, but you have to look for innovative molecules like a new different mechanism of action, or something that really can demonstrate an advantage, to a specific subpopulation or the healthcare system in general. So that's how we got started on the repurposing side, but that actually did not work out very well. But we looking for innovative molecules has done. I think it's really given us an advantage. So
How long did it take you before you felt ready to start?
I was actually, I mean, to start with a company that is externally funded. Um, well, I hate to tell you how old I was, but I was pretty old actually. Um, I was in my 50s, and but the advantage that I had was I had experienced so many things at Eli Lilly, at IQVIA, and NIH, and my PhD that it was not that hard to do a jump because I really focused on the things that I had gained experience in and expertise in. So I basically have done everything from basic research, i.e., identify a biological process, to launching a product. So I've gone through the whole gamut. So it was then fairly easy to to help start a company.
What were some of the biggest challenges when you first started?
Clearly finding the funds, external funds, which is still a big challenge for startup companies that look for external funding. Um, but that's what I would say was the biggest challenge that we had.
How did you overcome the challenge?
We just kept knocking on doors, and the other challenge was finding the right assets, the right molecules to develop. There's a lot of stuff out there, but not everything is great. And so we had to have a pretty good business development process and the right people. And two of the assets that I thought were going to be hits, actually we had to abandon them because we weren't able to develop them. Those were two biologics. Small molecules were much more successful, and especially with one that looks very promising right now for severe acute pancreatitis, where we work with the Advanced company to license the product in from the Mayo Clinic. And it's now basically going through a phase 2 study in the US and in India. So
How, how did you identify your target market and make sure your idea was something people truly needed?
that's a great question. Well, I came out of the neuroscience field, so I knew what was needed. And so when we came across an antidepressant that was looked very promising, we did a very significant due diligence and then thought it would definitely be worth licensing it in. So we licensed it in from a Japanese company. And then the acute pancreatitis was also very interesting because it was actually Mayo that came towards us and said, "Hey, would you be interested in this molecule?" And so we did a lot of research with regard to the need. What is acute pancreatitis? What is it a significant healthcare issue? And so again, we worked with Lamasu, and we were able to identify that this was really a very unmet need with high mortality ratings and long hospital stays. And and the compound, we asked Mayo to do some additional research to strengthen our confidence that this product would be effective in acute pancreatitis. And once they did that, Lamasu actually licensed it in to do the preclinical work, and we then took it over for the clinical work.
What makes your business different from others in the same industry?
Um, I think a lot of companies want to do the same things. I think what makes us a little bit different was maybe our business development process. Um, we do a very thorough assessment, and we had a very cross-functional team that did of toxicologists, pharmacologists, business people, that really left no stone unturned or page unturned to really assess whether this asset was a good asset or not. And so I think what differentiates us from other companies is what I would say um, maybe our thorough business development process and maybe the candidate selection that we decide to do research on.
How did the customers react to like what makes you different?
Well, I mean, our initial customers were the investors, the ones that were willing to give us some money. And they were to some extent intrigued. Um, and but I think they were more intrigued about the team that we had because a lot of investors gave us money without really us having any products to develop at that point. But but we had a lot of experience in the pharma business, and so people really kind of were very, very generous and trusted us that we would do something good with the funds that they would give us. Um, so I think that made us a little bit different from other companies as well.
Do you have like a process for coming up with new ideas?
Um, that's a great question. But it's not so much of a process as it is a natural curiosity. If you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a large company, small company, or whatever, or for yourself, the question always should be, is this the best we can do? The answer most likely will be no, because we're not perfect. And you need to, that question is always going to be a key question for any entrepreneur. Let me give you a very specific example. And that was when I was at Lilly and I became a district manager. District manager is somebody who is out in the field and directs and leads about 20, 25 sales representatives. I had no experience in being a district manager. I had never been in the field. I had no sales experience. But when I got there, my district was 78th out of 83. So really, I knew I couldn't mess up a lot. But my first question was, is this the best we can do? Or is there a better way to work with that team and make it successful? And the answer clearly was yes. And so I made a lot of changes. And at the end, our district was number 5 in the country. Instead of 5 from the bottom, we were 5 from the top. And, that was a great success story for the team. And it was really based on the point was, is this the best this team can do? And the answer clearly was no.
How do you stay innovative and ahead of your competitors?
Well, you have to have a learning mindset. You got to continuously learn. And when you have data, I always tell people if you generate data, you got to be your worst critic, because you need to. Every set of data is going to tell you something. It's going to raise more questions, and if you can raise the right questions, you can find the right answers. And so I think that never stop learning attitude, I think, is really what helps us stay ahead of a lot of the folks that think they know it all. We don't assume we know it all. We actually assume we don't know anything. And so that makes us very curious about how we can improve our knowledge. And then the other thing, before I forget that, is, you got to make sure you connect with people and learn from people. So it's not just book or articles, but also the people that you can learn from.
How do you decide which ideas are like worth pursuing?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, especially in our case, let the data be the drivers of your decision-making process. And then that probably gives you the highest chance of success. If you let your ego make the decision, most likely you're going to fail. So especially in healthcare, you have to let the data drive your decision process and your thought process. And that's what, if it does, I think you have a greater, you increase the probability of success. If it doesn't, you totally reduce your probability of success.
What is one important decision that you made that really shaped the direction of your company?
A poor decision. Well, I hate to tell you, but
Important decision.
I'm sorry.
Important decision that shaped the direction of your company.
Yeah, good question. The first two products that we licensed into our company were two biologics. And I thought the science really would made it worthwhile licensing those products in. And but we failed with the products. And um, I think the reason we failed was really because we had no clue how to develop a biologic. And so failure came easy. What we learned out of it was after that, we only really licensed in small molecules, and that the team had much better, had much more experience in. So, we failed on two compounds, but I think we'll be successful on the other two.
How did you feel in the moment when you failed?
Well, I didn't feel great because as an immunologist, I expected the biologics to do well. But on the other hand, what I learned out of it was the fact that, I didn't know the team as well as I thought I did. And because the team could not develop biologics. And so we went back to what's best, and that is one is an oral. They've developed lots of orals, small molecules, and then the other one is an intraperitoneal administration of a severe acute pancreatitis product, and well, that caused some challenges as well because again, the team was not very experienced in that or had no experience in it.
What did you change after the mistake?
Well, we changed our outlook with regard to what we licensed in. We licensed in small molecules that the team was more comfortable with.
Did you have any role models or mentors who guided you along the way?
Oh yeah, good Lord, that alone could take a couple of hours actually. I think one of the first role models was actually in college, a professor in biology who really encouraged critical thinking. And then he encouraged me to keep going with regard to getting an advanced degree in biology, which I had in the back of my mind anyway, but he really confirmed that he thought I would be a good candidate for a PhD, for a doctorate in immunology or in biology. Then my professor at the Drexel School of Medicine, Dr. Paige Moorhan, she was a pioneer in her own rights because she was one of the few women that originally got a PhD because back then it was mostly a male-dominated world, and but she basically taught me to be disciplined, to have very clear thoughts, have a good strategy before I start any kind of work, and which actually helped to finish my PhD very, very fast, relatively fast compared to others. And because she encouraged me to develop a good plan of attack, and then generate the data that I thought would be necessary to be of interest to the scientific community. At Eli Lilly, I had a lot of business thought leaders. Like one of the mentors was a fellow named Mitch Daniels, who later on became a two-term governor of Indiana. But he was the president of Eli Lilly and Company in the US. He's the one who sent me out in the wilderness as a district manager. And when my boss told him that I had no sales experience, and back then at Lilly, you couldn't become a manager in the field if you didn't have sales experience. His only comment was, "Too late, announced, he's going to go." And so that was the end of that. And so he encouraged me with regard to, even if you get into areas that you don't know anything about, get up to speed as quickly as you can, and then do the best. And, again, look around and say, is this the best this team can do? And the answer clearly was no. And so then it's up to you to come up with some good ideas to change the situation, and encourage your team to follow your lead, and and then you work with them day and night basically to make them as good. But so Mitch Daniels was one of them. I had a gentleman named Alan Clark, who at Eli Lilly and Company, who had a lot of confidence and had a lot of confidence in his people. And whenever somebody would come to him and say, "Hey, you got to help me convince somebody on your team on a certain situation," he would say, "No, you go. If you convince him, you convince me. If you don't convince him, you don't convince me." So somebody who really has a lot of faith in what you're doing. And so those were some of the key mentors that I had. So
Do you mentor others now?
a little bit. I just recently got involved in the entrepreneur group at my old college at Hampton, Sydney. And so I gave a lecture on entrepreneurship, and they just are on their way back from a entrepreneurship meeting at Purdue University in Indiana, where I connected them with that group. And I heard they finished 4th out of 100 in entrepreneur event that they had. So I was extremely pleased about that. So I do a little bit of mentoring, but it's not a focus of mine. But if somebody wants to be mentored, then that's fine.
What keeps you motivated through tough times?
Well, one of the things I'd say the biggest motivation is, first of all, I have a passion for healthcare. And if you're not motivated in situations, if I was not motivated, then I would have to think about, is that really the passion that I have? The passion is what keeps you motivated. And that also gets you through discouraging situations. It gets you through failure. But the number one thing you need to identify, and I think you can start as early as you can, is to find out, what am I really passionate about, and because then you can make it a success. I don't know whether your dad would like for me to tell you that, but my youngest son was a professional Rocket League player, so e-gamer. And he is really passionate about it. And so he now coaches teams in an e-game called Rocket League. And he's very, very passionate about it. And that's what makes him successful. And he also, with his passion, he can overcome any kind of challenges that come along his way, because he knows what the end game was. The end game for him was to make teams as successful as possible. And he has been very successful in doing that.
I've heard about your son. Your dad told me about him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, when I first saw him play this, I told him, I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I told him, I said, but if you keep your grades up, it's okay. And he did keep his grades up. And so, and he majored in statistics and analytics, data analytics. And I think he's using some of that knowledge to analyze his teams better, maybe than any other coach. And so that makes him very, very successful. So, I don't know where he's going to go from there eventually, but I'm very proud of him, even though he works in an area that I know absolutely nothing about.
Do you have any routines or habit that helps you stay focused?
I don't know whether it's a routine. Again, I mentioned that I do like to read. I like to keep up with things. Um, and but my routine, and now that I'm older, I'm a little bit more relaxed on the routines. But my routine was always get up early. And I learned that as a swimmer, where you had to get up at 4 to do practice before you go to school. So I kept that. And then the other thing is, be disciplined about something. That is going to be key. You if you can do that, that's great. Like I said, I'd get up early in the morning. And the other thing is the other routine that I had and that I practice more a little bit now is, whatever you achieve, it's not something that you achieve, it's really God's gift. And that to me is very, very important. And spending some time reflecting over it, and maybe read the Bible or listen to some spiritual things that's going to get you through life, and it's going to get you through um, the good times and the bad times.
What skills do you think every entrepreneur should develop?
What skills?
Yes.
You know what? People skills is one of them. You got to be able to, if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot think about the idea that you're the only person and everything is done by yourself. But you gotta have a team that you feel very good about. And so building the right team is important. Leading the team is important. Being able to read the people, see what they need and what they don't need is very important. And then from a skill set perspective, it depends what area you want to be an entrepreneur in. Is it going to be in the financial sector? Then I would say become an expert in finance. If it is in healthcare or biology or medicine, become a physician, become a scientist. Excuse me, and develop your skills there. Um, so it, and again, what's important is to find out what is your passion, and become an expert in the things that makes you get out of bed in the morning happily, to learn more, to become a greater expert in that area of passion. And that's where you should eventually build your company around it. Or if you work for another company, work for another company where your passion is needed.
How do you make sure your business has a positive impact on your society?
Well, I mean, the positive impact, oh, in healthcare, it's actually kind of easy. If you work on in therapeutic areas, or if you develop something for therapeutic areas where there is a high unmet need, then work on it. And if you succeed in it, then you will have help society, or at least a subpopulation in that society, to maybe live a healthier life. It's probably very unlikely that you are going to be an entrepreneur, or that you're going to influence the whole world or even the whole country. But if you're passionate about something, in my case, it's healthcare. So you may impact positively people that are sick or suffer from something that you can possibly help. And so and it doesn't have to be a pharmaceutical agent. It could be in other ways, maybe helping. One of the things that we did at Lilly for people with mental illness, we try to incorporate them into society, into their local community, either through giving free membership to health clubs so they could take care of their physical health, put them into training programs for job training. Those are all things that impact those people with mental difficulties. And you know what? Every person that you can have a positive influence on is a win. So it doesn't matter how many people you impact. It just is important that you do impact, um, even if it's your neighbor or whatever it is. Whoever it is, that um, you can impact.
Why is this important to you personally?
To do what? To impact people?
Yes, to impact and
Oh, you know what? Here's my point. God gave me a lot of talents, and has given me a lot of gifts, and has made me very successful in very important areas. Um, I think to give something back is very, very important. And because not everybody, don't know why, but not everybody is as fortunate. And you always should think about the fact that, um, every time there's always somebody who's less fortunate than you are. And most likely in cases like, in my case, a lot of people are less fortunate than I am. So the question is, how can you help them? And healthcare was one of the areas that came almost naturally to me because I like biology, I like the science, and I like the research. And so, it became a pretty natural thing to have that help somebody attitude. But, it doesn't matter what you do in life. It's something that you should always think about the fact that, all the graces that you get come from God, and He expects you to help those people that are not as fortunate as you are. It's that simple.
have you seen any real life examples of your impact?
Um, yeah, I think my sales representatives in Michigan that went from being nowhere to being one of the most successful teams they ever had in Michigan. And what did that impact? Was very simple. They got a higher bonus, and it was during the Atlanta Olympics. And the company gave successful territories and successful representatives a ticket to attend some of the Olympics in Atlanta. And over half my district went because they were so successful. That's one. The second one was just recently with that entrepreneur club at Hampden Sydney College that I connected with an opportunity to show what they can do in Indiana, and they ended up being fourth out of 100 teams, um, including being better than Indiana University, Purdue University, Notre Dame. And Hampden Sydney is a very small school. So they could actually, it was a very good event for them. It put them on the map. And that was a great thing, I think.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Too young myself?
Yes. To your younger self when you were first starting.
Um, identify what you have a passion in as early as you can. And the other thing I would say, what really helped me and shaped me, especially when I was in Germany, was I was a very passionate swimmer and water polo player. I wasn't great at it, but I was passionate about it. And so to me, the benefit was I got to know a lot of great people. Um, we all trained together. We all went on, swim meets and water polo matches together, and that was really my friends, and I learned from them as much as they probably learned from me. Um, and So it's very, very important that you develop a good network of friends, which for me came in terms of my swim team. Um, my youngest, the electronic gamer, um, he was a little bit different. I mean, his friends were originally other very good students in high school. So they were a whole bunch of little nerds, but they were all very successful in academics, and all went to good schools. And then he now also has, in addition, a lot of international Rocket League players that are his friends, all over the world. And I mean, he's been to the Middle East maybe 4 times at this point. He's been to Europe several times, obviously in several places in the US. And most likely at some point in time, he'll go to Australia and South America. But, it's, but what's important is he made some good friends in the process, all over the world, which I think is very, very important.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs starting today?
Um, well, I would say again, what skill set do you have? Don't become an entrepreneur just because you want to be an entrepreneur, because that to me makes an ego-driven entrepreneur, and ego and entrepreneurship don't go very well together. Humility and entrepreneurship go very, very well together. So I would say, again, identify what you're really good at, and see where they can make it a go, and perhaps can you find some friends that share your passion and your skill set, or have complementary skill sets, and see whether you can become an entrepreneur with a team, I guess. An individual entrepreneur, I'm not sure that can become very lonely.
What is one small step someone my age can take right now towards entrepreneurship?
Always ask yourself the question, is this the best um, that can be done in a certain situation? That to me, sharpen that skill set, ask the right questions. Like when I started working on the pricing stuff at Lilly, my first question was to somebody in the pricing department, what are we selling things for? They gave me a booklet and said, this is it. This is where the list prices are. I said, no, that's not what I want to know. I want to know what we're selling things for. You don't sell things at a list price. And so we did out of this came a study where we looked at various products and followed them over time, and realized that, for example, for our diabetes care products, we sold them at 20% less than what the list price said. Well, where did the 20% go? So we said, okay, that was the next question. Where did the 20% go? So we found out where they went, and we actually realized that some of the products that we sold in diabetes, we sold below cost. Well, that's not a good thing. And so we said, how can we improve on that? So we said, well, we need to start with a business plan. And so we did a business plan by product, by customer type. And so we were able to actually avoid selling products below cost. And so the question is always, is this the best we can do? Or is there, or any process, is this the best way the process can be? The answer is most likely no. And you take it from there, and one question after another, because every answer that you get is going to lead to more questions.
What is your message to young students who dream of creating something of their own?
What is my message?
Yes, like what advice would you give? And
Learn. Number one is learn, be observant, find the niche that you could start something or would like to be an entrepreneur in, find friends, and then find resources.
well, thank you, Dr. Ackerman, for giving me the opportunity to interview you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we end?
I think this is a great project for you because um, you probably start a whole lot earlier than I did in thinking about this. And so, again, if there's some things that you can take away from it, that's great, and try to apply it. And then, the other thing is you've got an entrepreneur in your family, and he's very good. So and he can teach you about, when you're passionate about something, the failures are not quite as bad, and the successes are much better than you can possibly think of. And there was a big quote from Winston Churchill, who said, "Enthusiasm is going from or success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm." And that's an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ackerman, for giving me the opportunity to interview you. Um,
Anytime, if you have more questions, let me know.
I will. Thank you.